Thank you for joining us today for part 2 of our 2-part series as we take a look at the mental health challenges of being a residential versus commuter student.
So what would be the five things that you would impart to somebody living on campus?
Yeah, gosh, that's a good question. I think the first thing would be to realize that it's okay to need to figure out a new relationship with your family. And for me, I definitely had to figure it out because it was almost that conflict of, well, who am I? Mm-hmm. Because my whole life I was this version, and now I'm an adult. And going back, I didn't know how to even see myself. Am I an adult? Do I need to ask permission to go do this? Do I not? Like, what do I do? Or even whenever I would go home, all of my friends were at home. All of my, my high school friends, my childhood friends. Right. Is it okay if I go and see them? Or is that taking away time from my family because they want to see me? So just feeling obligated to make everyone happy. So I think the first one would be understanding that it's okay to have that transition. It's okay to struggle for a minute with finding what the new normal is for your relationship, because the relationship's going to change. Right. And I think now as a parent, I can look and see, and my children are still small, but I'm thinking about my mom's experience, and I'm sure she probably was having a hard time of seeing her daughter, who she's raised, now being an adult, and maybe wondering, well, gosh, like, what are the new boundaries, right? Right. And so I think being willing to have an open conversation of like, yeah, this is weird.
Yeah, right.
The second one I think for me would be finding ways to anchor myself in this new environment, in this new culture, because college experience is an entire culture, and being willing to try new things, but finding ways to anchor myself so I'm not just floating. Because if I don't make any friendships, if I don't find any ways to connect, then I'm just floating. Right. And if I'm having bad days or if I'm not in a good place, who's going to know? Who's going to check on me because I haven't connected with anyone to establish any sort of relationship? And so it's so easy, I think, to have your needs overlooked when there's no one looking at you. Right. And so making a connection. So I think that would definitely be number 2. Connecting with my professors. Like, I wanted them to know my name. I wanted them to know who I was. Connecting with, social groups on campus, just finding ways to connect, because I think all of those connections anchor you. And then if you are having a hard time, that professor knows you now. You can reach out and ask for help, or you can reach out and ask for guidance. You're not just a name on a paper. You're someone that they know. The third thing I would say is sleep. Okay. Because there's so much all the time. And Kirk, there's too much. I mean, they jam-pack your schedule with all of these events because, campus life, they know that not every event is going to be appealing to every single person. Right. Especially that first freshman year. Yeah. Exactly. And so there's so many things. And I think sometimes there's that fear of missing out of like, well, I've got to do everything. You really don't. Carving out time for self-care, sleeping, because the other part about it, you have roommates that are your same age that are not your siblings. So you actually want to talk to them and hang out with them. Right. So I think it would be really easy to like slumber party every night. But, setting those boundaries of self-care. 4, I think, would be actually reading the material that you're supposed to be reading for class. Okay. Because there's so much to do. And because there's so much to do, that can be a good thing. It creates opportunities for connection. It also can create unlimited opportunities for distraction, right? And so I think for me, it's so easy sometimes to just slide right under the radar of just doing just enough to pass that. Why are you actually at college, right? Why are you here? Why are you paying all of this money? Because you want to walk away with a degree so you can get, a job or the career of your choice, but so you can learn information, and that information that you're learning really has a greater impact, in my opinion, than the piece of paper. So am I going to spend all of this money in all of these years and walk away and cheating myself because, well, I didn't really read the book. I didn't really remember the information, because a lot of people, you can do bullet points and you can learn just enough to pass the test. But once the test is over, do you still have any of that knowledge? And I think sometimes we get this mentality as students of like, oh my gosh, it's just busy work. And I can tell you some of it, maybe. But a lot of it, actually, that information is beneficial for you down the road. And especially even in graduate school, there's so many books to read. There's so much. And you can pass by doing the bare minimum, right? And by going through school just to pass the tests, or going through school to learn so you're equipped. So that would be number 4, actually doing the work, because you can get by, but if you do the work, you're going to walk away with so much more than the person who didn't. And I think number 5 is giving yourself permission for your friendships to change. And that was really hard, because I had this season of grief, because a lot of my friends that were my true ride or die friends are in high school. These are your people. I can count on one hand the people from that season of my life that are still speaking into my life and, really impacting my life. But at the time I thought, well, these are going to be my people forever. Because when you're young, forever has not, taken a lot of time yet.
Right.
And so I think that knowing that some friendships are for a season, and some friendships, they're supposed to happen to teach you a lesson or to help you prepare for something. And some friendships last forever. And it's okay for friendships to have a purpose. And I have friends, that I grew up with that are still dear, dear to my heart. And I have college friends that I met, and they were great supports. And I don't talk to them a lot now. And I have college friends that I've met, and they've changed the course of my life, and they're still the dearest friends. And so I think understanding that there's different types of friendships,
right,
and being okay with friendships changing, because we change, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Did any of those surprise you?
No. No. The way, because I understand you, and we've talked a lot before. So no, those are good things.
Well, I think there's a guilt sometimes in letting go of people or letting go of things, and moving from a very small town, which was a wonderful town, to the town that I'm in now. Not everybody has the same vision for their life, and not everybody has the same motivation, and that's okay. But because mine is different than some of the people that I grew up with, realizing it's okay for our path to go down different roads. And that doesn't mean we don't care about each other. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't be there for each other. It just means we're different now.
Right.
And I think that separation, I think the underlying theme is separating and growing. And that's not bad.
Yeah. And two, there's that sense of loss. You're right. The friendships change. There are seasonal friends. There are friends that'll be for lifelong. But
and when you're 5, you think everyone is going to be your
right. Exactly. So, from the commuter standpoint, the 5 things I would impart on somebody in those situations is, you've got that independence. So, yeah, you have a lot more choices, but there's some struggles that come with those choices. First of all, your routine. You still may have the oversight of parents.
Yeah.
And in some cases, you're under my roof, it's the house rules kind of deal. You have to make a choice. Do you want to continue with that, if that's kind of what goes on there, or do you have the levity of some more independence? So you have to make a choice, and some of it's financial. In my case, it was a little bit more financial than it was anything else. I couldn't afford to live off campus on my own, and I was too close to home to be on campus, and so it was it made sense. So it was more convenience kind of thing. So those choices, think about those choices and what you might have to do to go off to commute. I don't have any regrets about that. There's some things, I do think I missed out, and that's probably part of one of the things I would say is that fear of missing out on certain things. As a commuter, you'll have to be more intentional and looking out for those opportunities to connect. The freshman year, you have those freshman mixers and all of that. And what I did notice is the people that I connected with briefly during those little get-togethers, the meet and greets and stuff like that, you could see the differences in those that commuted and those that were living on campus. Those friendships for those that were on campus seemed to create a different kind of a bond, a stronger bond versus the commuters who, we connected, hey, how you doing? And it was a different level of friendship. So be mindful of that. And if you want to make those connections, you have to seek that out a lot more. So 2 things. Understand that you've got some choices in the living arrangements and how that works. Understanding you might be sacrificing a little bit of independence if you're still living at home because you might still be under the I got to pass everything through mom and dad kind of structure. And the second is being intentional and seeking out those connections in college life and those friendships, and probably adding that time in there to do so. Sometimes you're right. The freshman and sophomore years in college, they load you up with the classes or need you to load up with the classes, which is fine, but it doesn't help with the study groups and things like this that are part of that whole experience as well. And it does, as a commuter, makes it a little bit challenging. If there's a group project, everybody's on campus, you're not, you got to schedule time, and having a job on top of that makes it challenging. So again, those opportunities, joining clubs, being part of those groups, you've got to be intentional in that. The third thing I would do is, come up with a plan. Think of for me, it was coming up with a budget and having two kinds of plans. One is a financial plan. One is just kind of a daily kind of plan for yourself. Create that routine for yourself, because while I lived at home, there was still that sense of a routine. My parents had to go to work. You had to get up with them, and you had to go off and do your thing. They went off and did their thing. So that's how it was like in my life. And it's not the same for everybody, but think of your plan and try to slowly start to separate from the parental structure as much as you can.
Well, jumping in, I know you've got 4 and 5, but you reminded me of something. I think that for me, this was a season that I had to learn how to advocate for myself, right? Because growing up in that small town, everybody knew me.
Yep.
And so, my mom was around, or everyone knew my mom. And so it's one of those things where it's like, well, they're going to treat you nicely because, they know your mom.
Right.
They're going to see you in the grocery store every week. And so nobody knew me here. So if I needed to stand up for myself, I was going to have to stand up for myself. If I needed to resolve a conflict, I was going to have to resolve the conflict because my mom wasn't there. My family wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so learning, 5.5, learning that all conflict isn't bad, that conflict can actually be a learning experience. And
right.
So, being on campus and having, I had the one roommate that I knew, but the next semester and, all the semesters following, I would have roommates I didn't know. And how do you navigate, shower schedules, or if someone messed with your things? I had a roommate one time, whenever I would go away I had a morning class, she would go into my drawer without permission and eat my snacks. That was weird.
Yeah.
And the way that I found out was my class got canceled, and I came back, and there she was with my bag of Cheetos and orange fingers. I'm like, what's going on here? And so, what do you even say in that situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think, it's an incubator of learning new coping skills that maybe you'd never had to use before. I would know exactly what to say if it was a sibling.
Yep.
100%.
Exactly.
But if it's a stranger, because really roommates, they are strangers to a degree. And so I think learning how to resolve conflict while trying to preserve some sort of, friendship or relationship or whatever it was, that's something that I didn't necessarily have before to a degree because everyone in my life I knew and everyone in my life I'd known my whole life.
Right, right.
And so that was a big change. And I think that that's something that new college students can expect because there will be conflict because anytime people are living under the same roof that you're not related to, there's that level of like, gosh, like how do I handle this?
Right, right. Right. You had mentioned something about reading and reading the materials. Well, not being on campus, I don't have that. I did not have that pressure so much to
Really?
be connected. Well, again, the friendships were slightly different. I had some really good friendships, but you're right, they're seasonal. And so at that time in my life, they were very important. They were helpful. We supported each other through, not only college classwork struggles, but other struggles as well at that time. And I think being off campus, they gave me an opportunity to get out of that chaos too, because it can be chaotic. So I had that opportunity to get away, and I could get into my studies a little bit more, and I could read the material, like you said. And again, being a book person, I tended to enjoy that anyway. But having those moments, so I think as somebody who commuted, I had to plan extra time to set aside because some of your time is taking up and driving back and forth.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out, okay, I've got this chunk of time here that's not going to be beneficial for anything. So other than driving back and forth. And so what I would do is suggest as number 4 is when you set up your schedule to really look at the block of classes. Now, I know a lot more is structured around the blocks and classes by the school nowadays. Back then, we had a little more freedom to choose our blocks. Not a lot, but you still had some choices to make. And so if you're able to choose, I would actually work in some time to have those social moments where you could go to whatever the student center is or the place where people congregate, hang out at the coffee shop and have that time. Again, it's an intentional thing to sit and make some of those connections for friends, school projects, and things like that. The other part I would say is know the resources. So I guess this is my number 5, is know the resources that are available to you as a student on campus. Because they're there for everybody on campus, not just those that live on campus, but those that commute as well have access to all of these services and what is there available that can help you kind of connect. And I know some college campuses may even have commuter support groups. And in some cases, they help each other out and carpool if your car breaks down and things like that. So see if that's something that may be available on your campus, because that could be another way to connect with people and another way to build those friendships and network for classes. And I remember some of my friends in college, because we were up in the north and it gets cold out there, we'd sit in the car with the heater on and just have that personal conversations in the cars about things going on in our lives and things going on campus with coursework and stuff like that. So it's a different kind of connectivity, like you said. So a little more effort, but I go back to, and you mentioned advocacy. Part of connecting with those resources is advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
Because as we start to become adults, we have to advocate for ourselves because the family isn't always going to be there. Mom and dad aren't always going to be there to have your back. You've got to be able to say, hey, this is what I need, or this is what I would like to have happen. Now, does it always happen that way? Maybe not. Doesn't hurt to ask, because a no is a no sometimes, but sometimes there's a maybe, and it's like, okay, we have room to compromise.
Right.
And you never know.
So wrapping up the differences in, commuter life versus campus life, I mean, there's some very specific differences.
Yeah.
But I think that the underlying issue is the same: learning how to transition, learning how to regulate, learning how to, figure out, well, who are you in this
Adapt.
season, how to adapt. Yeah, so if you are listening, Kirk and I, we are both directors at Peace River Center. And if you live in our service area, we would love to talk to you about ways that we can support you, ways we can support your community. But if you're outside of our listening area, there are resources available.
Yes, and you can access a lot of those resources just to simply talk to somebody. If you want to, you can connect with like 211 to find out community resources that are available. But if you're on your college campus, by all means, definitely check out what's available. A lot of college campuses have a counseling center that you can tap into, get information from, just to find out what it's like for college life. So thank you for joining us today, and please join us again. If you enjoyed our show, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you or someone you know is struggling with any mental health issues, locally here in Central Florida, you can call us at 863-519-3744. Or if you're listening from areas outside of Florida, you can dial the national number, 988.